And hello, and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota Podcast, your South African cricket podcast that talks all things South African cricket, domestic, international, anything that relates to South African cricket, we've got it for you. Today was the official launch of the men's domestic series season. It happened out in Mpho. It was a really, really good launch, and so well done to all involved. But that would signify the start of something. Normally, our seasons, well, recently, last year, that's the only precedent, our seasons have begun with a T20 challenge. And so we're going to be talking about that today. I've got Tim to discuss that and all the teams. Tim, how are you doing? We've been watching a lot of World Cup cricket, like early round World Cup cricket. And the Africans are doing quite well, you know.
They're doing very well, dude, very well. The only thing I don't like about this is that the ICC are going to take all the credits, and yet they shouldn't. We will get into that later in the week, but the fact that you've got qualifiers at the same time as actual games that are very important for teams is absolutely crazy for me. It wouldn't happen in any other sport. But it's been good. It's been a good advertisement for T20 cricket. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good thing. So like for me, like I've seen Namibia doing well, Zimbabwe, well, we're recording it right now, Zimbabwe's on the back end of beating Ireland. Scotland beat the West Indies today, so we don't know who's going to make it into the final groups for the World Cup, which makes it really interesting. You know, Sri Lanka lost, obviously, to Namibia. So I think it might even go down to those final group games to kind of, you know, give us a little bit of a nail bite and help us get to the end. Because what would be really great is if Sri Lanka and West Indies actually don't make it in, but Zimbabwe and Namibia do, or Scotland or something like that, to kind of let the ICC know that actually you can't be doing these things. These early rounds, yes, they're exciting, but this thing of splitting the world into two doesn't make sense because the former associate nations can actually beat the full member nation. So for me, that's the one that's been a thing. But outside of that, obviously, today is the start of the CSA T20. I think it's the Dolphins against the Titans this morning. Right now, starting. We're recording as it happens, but today's show is the CSA T20 Challenge preview. We're going to give you a sense of the teams, what they are like, and what we like about the teams and what's going on. Just as a sense, it's a 3-week tournament. It's playing in Poch. Based on weather right now, it looks like we could finally get some rain. We need the rain. The cricketers don't need the rain, but we could finally get some rain, so it could be rain affected. But outside of that, excited to see 3 weeks of cricket in and around the World Cup, which is the disappointing thing. Largely because this could have been a preparation to the World Cup, but the Proteas were traveling around the world, and the international schedule and domestic schedule can never be brought together in alignment. But I would have loved to have had at least the CSA T20 be playing a little bit earlier, but you had to fit in Division 2. So there was a lot of things that are on the go for CSA, the new CSA executives who are trying to figure out as their first season, essentially, with the new executives of marketing, as well as the finance, and obviously Poloso as or Museki as the CEO. So as well as the permanent CEO. So a lot happening at Cricket South Africa. But Tim, what are you looking forward to seeing in this tournament?
I'm looking forward to seeing all the guys that have done the movement from Division 2 into Division 1. There's been a few of those. So your Evan Joneses and your Cameron Delports have gone from the Division 2 sides into your beloved province. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how they go. I'm obviously interested to see also the youngsters. So Daniel Smith, who's highly thought of down here, he's only really played 2 T20 matches, but he's got the game for that format. So I'm looking forward to seeing people like him come in. And then your guys that can clear the boundary, guys that you can clear the boundary, the guys that went for big money in the SA20. So your Donovan Ferreiras, we know what he's capable of. We want him to do it on a more consistent and regular basis. This is the perfect platform to show. This is why I was bought for so much in the competition. This is the platform for him to thrive. So there's lots there. There's lots to go on.
Yeah, so
go on.
Before we continue and talk about the squads, please remember that you can subscribe to One World Sports Radio's YouTube channel, as well as all the social media platforms on Instagram and One World Sports Radio, full name, all out there. On Twitter, it's One World SR. And then on Facebook, also One World Sports Radio. This podcast is on there. We're also on Spotify. We're also on Apple Podcasts, and we're on Anchor as well. So you can catch us at the various areas. Tim, I'm just going to start putting up team lists, and we're going to start going through it all. Obviously, yes. So let's start with the first set of teams. So we've got the Momentum Multiply Titans, the G-Bex Rocks, and the Six Gun Grill Western Province. I look at the Titans side, and we're going to start with the Titans. For our audio listeners, I'm going to have to go through each of the teams, so just bear with me if you're watching. The Titans have Spodela Makanya, Neil Brandt, Tienes the Brain, Aaron Pangiso, Dean Alga, Corbin Bosch, Ayat Gamane, Dan Khalim, Donovan Ferreira, Junior Dala, Javishan Pillay, Simon Harmer, Diego Brevis, Matthew Boast, and Musa Twala. And I look at this Titan side, and I'm like, actually, this is probably one of the best batting units the best batting unit in the tournament. I had to check myself there, and also the most exciting, largely because of those two names at the bottom, Matthew Boast and Diego Brevis. And then you've also got Donovan Ferreira, who can hit a long ball. We know what Corbin Bosch can provide with the bat as well, but you've also got Ayat Gamani, who can hit it quite well. Spanela Makanya had a really great end to the season in the 50-over format, and so that's something that obviously the guys will be looking for. And so like a guy like Javishan Pillay opening the batting with Diego Brevis could also open him up and to people wanting him on probably even in SA20, because he's also a talented batter. Bowling wise, meh for me. Tim, when you look at the Titans, what do you think?
It's the batting, boy. It is the batting. It's the Donovan Ferreira, Diego Brevis show. If they can come off with the experience of somebody like Tienes the Brain, they could be making 200 on a regular basis. Obviously, the pitch approach might be a little bit on the slow side, but I still expect them to score runs and score big runs. But I agree with you. I'm a little bit concerned about the bowling department. They're going to have to rely an awful lot on somebody like Pangiso. We saw last year in Quebec in that tournament, similar tournaments, all played in the one venue, how important spin bowling was. Somebody like him he's going to be very, very important to help the Titans get things down, as well as Harbour. I'm not a massive Harbour fan when it comes to T20 cricket, but he still has enough sort of nous, if you like, enough intelligence to cause problems with the ball. But as I say, it's the Brevis, De Brain, and Ferreira show. Those boys are going to score a lot of runs, and I'm glad for Matthew Boast as well. I'm looking forward to seeing him up at the next level, if you like. Proper professional cricket now. They're going to be playing double headers as well, which is important. So they're going to be an awful lot of cricket as well.
Yes, and obviously they are the defending champions. Even last year we were worried about their bowling, but they somehow got there. They somehow managed to get there, and that's the problem with this Titan side, Tim, is that on paper they don't look that great, but you've got guys like Tienes the Brain, you've got guys like Pangiso, you've got guys like Corbin Bosch, who is a CPL guy who can bring you back from a bowling perspective. But if they can bat teams out the game, they can find themselves in the thick of things again this year.
Yeah, they are like the Real Madrid of South African cricket. You think that you think they're getting a bit old. I mean, Tennis De Bruin, Aaron Punky, so Neil Brandt, Dean Elgar, Kamani. These guys are at the back end of their careers. I think it's fair to say, but they do find a way of winning. They find a way of winning games. So that's an important thing to have.
And they've got a good coaching setup. The next team is the GBet Rocks, coached by JP Germany. His team reads as this: is Peter Malan, who's the captain, Yanaman Malan, Clyde Fortain, Michael Copeland, Ferisco Adams, Achille Klute, Hardest for Yoon, Farhan Behadin, Leos Deploy, Sean von Berg, Imran Manak, Kwesi Gumete, Baman Ngenge, Christian Jonke, and Valentine Kitime. Another thing with this side, bowling, not so great. They've got some good spinners. Sean von Berg, Imran Manak will cause problems. But from a batting perspective, I think Yadaman will do really well. He does really well in this format. And Peter also came to his own in Gqeberha the last time. Clyde Fortain as well scored a lovely 100 last season. So they've got a it's not like a Titans we can explode batting lineup, but they've got a we can be competitive batting lineup and above average batting lineup. And obviously adding Leos Deploy, who comes from the second division, also kind of gives you a little bit of that middle order strength. What do you say, Tim?
I think last year they got all of the impetus from the Malan brothers. Peter was the leading run scorer in this competition. He got 550s in the competition. He really found a nice purple patch for him. But they needed somebody in the middle. They weren't getting the runs from Clyde Fortain. They weren't getting enough runs from Ferisco Adams and the middle order and Jonker. They weren't getting enough runs last year from the other players. Leos Deploy is the signing of the competition for me. Absolutely outstanding. Outstanding cricketer, 360 player, hits it all around the ground, scoops, reverse hooks, you name it. That boy has got a huge amount of talent. As with anything, particularly with their play, they're going to struggle with we saw when they had Carl Abbott struggled to get momentum with creating pressure. So again, same as last year, Von Berg and Manak together is going to be absolutely crucial. They're probably going to bowl every game together, and they're going to be crucial to get their team in charge and put the opposition under pressure. So it's the Malan brothers, the spinners, at the signing of the season, Leos Deploy.
The other thing was obviously Sia Mahima is actually missing from me. He was really important last year with those other two spinners.
He's the second player this season to fail CSA fitness requirements.
Okay.
Jonathan Van der of Division 2, and now Mahima. It's a shame because I like him. He's a good cricketer.
Yes.
Good spinner.
He did really well in the last year.
Yeah, that's a problem. You need to nip that in the bud. I don't want to go into that discussion. We'll go into another time, perhaps.
Let's move on to your home team, Tim. Western Province, the 6-gun grill. Abdallah Bayumi, who you'll have to let me know who he is. There's a lot of names here. I was like, "Ooh, Tim, this is going to be nice for you to tell me." Aviom Kijima, Bjorn Hendricks, Dane Patterson, Daniel Smith, Gavin Kaplan, George Linder, Jonathan Bird is out. Brought in Ethan Cunningham, I assume, from under 19. And then, what is it? It is Junaid Dawood, Carl Simmons, Carl Verena, Michael Mpongwana, Nandre Berger, Tony DeZorzi, Tapo Mareki. I'd say bowling is a step up compared to the other two. Batting, a lot of unproven here. A lot of unproven. And that's going to be quite key. Obviously, Tony DeZorzi is proven in this batting lineup, Calvarena as well. But then the names Smith, Kaplan, um, Cunningham, who's coming in. I assume Abdallah Bayumi. I hear he's a batter as well. So yeah, Tim, tell me about your team. What's going on? Bowling wise, I'm like, yeah, sure, we can see you. But batting wise, I'm like,
I tell you what, boy, the batting is going to surprise you. I'm telling you right now, the batting is going to surprise you. The numbers are not there, like you rightly point out. That is true. The Ethan Cunninghams, Daniel Smith, and Gavin Kaplan, they both just come into the system last year. Daniel Smith's got a professional contract. Gavin Kaplan has got a high performance contract. So they've just come in. They haven't played a lot of this sort of format, but I'll tell you what, they have got the games to thrive in this format. They are going to surprise a lot of people. Daniel Smith, I predict, is going to be... I'll stick my head out. He's going to be the leading run scorer for Western Province in this competition. Sticking my head out there, saying that. That's a slight disservice to Tony. I love Tony,
okay.
but I think Daniel is a quality cricketer. Bahimi is an all-rounder. Bahimi is the younger version of Afiba Mikajima. Except he bowls pace, not off spin. But if you remember, Mikajima started out as a medium fast bowler, but due to injuries, he's had to go into bowling off spin. The key here for Province, though, is to have Nandri Berger and Chepo Mareki fit. If they can have them fit for the season, which they didn't have last season, they can have a really good go at this competition. They could really have a good go. Carl Simmons again. I think Carl Simmons and Daywood, I think you're going to see them playing for much of the season. We spoke to Dane Patterson earlier in the year, and he said spin is coming into its own at Newlands. So expect Simmons and Daywood to play together with Mareki and Berger. Dane Patterson's just returned home from the Warriors last year. Again, he's had a very good season over at Notts.
I thought you'd say that was the signing of the season because they got themselves a bowler, an all-format bowler, and a bowler who does actually well in this format, who's played at home, and for the life of me, didn't play for them last year, which bothered me a lot. Instead of telling me about your boy Elias, who's great, by the way, but... You know, Dane's a fine.
Dane struggled a little bit at home at the Warriors in this format. He struggled a little bit. I'm not entirely sure why, but he didn't quite get his straps going in this format. So that's why I was a little bit apprehensive. I think in the 50 overs and the 4-day stuff, that's where he's going to be the real business. Not to say he won't be effective here. I just think he'll be more effective in the longer formats.
Okay. The next three teams, they are the Dolphins, the Hollywood Bets Dolphins, Sardal Arvia, Ethan Bosch, Kaya Zondo, Grant Rulofsson, John Smuts, Andile Simelani, Tando Ntini, Tapang Ditole, Jason Smith, Keegan Peterson, Darren De Pavillon, Marks Ackerman, Prenelin Subrian, Othniel Bartman, and Bryce Parsons. I look at the side, batting strong-ish, but I don't think they bat at high strike rates, and that's going to be a massive test for them. Like, this is a side that I would say if we're playing in Durban, fine, but they're missing that power hitting in the middle order. Obviously, David Miller's with the Proteas, and you can see that, like, without, like, it. Obviously, John's going to probably shoulder a lot of the burden. We want to probably see if Sardal can get back to his T20 best that he had. Obviously, Marks Ackerman as well. He's looking to prove himself in this format. Bowling wise, I think they're hoping that the I think they've gone very pace heavy, which is nice, and Tini, who can be inconsistent, but obviously you got Bartman, who's exciting, Dupavillon, and I like this bowling attack a lot. Also like the fact that they've managed to get Adile Similani in, who is another all-rounder, and it'll be interesting to see how Bryce Parsons also gets inside. I think Bryce could be one of those batting options as well, who can hit higher than 120, since that's the number we're always looking for in T20.
Yeah, look, if you look into last season, what they were looking for here is that they could see that the areas of concern in this particular format. They needed an opening batsman, and they went and got John John. I think John John's going to bat at the top, and it's going to go hell for leather, and trying to get the Dolphins up to a good start. They also got the Chipong Tutoli from the I think it was KZ Inland from last season. Also an opening batsman, but again, it's going to be the bowling. It's that axis of Bartman, O'Brien to Pavillon. Those three, they're going to rely heavily on them. Also, a injury-free Grant Rudolphson. He's got the numbers here. He's got the numbers to back up his inclusion. He talked to us about taking the gloves. So you'd probably want to take the gloves here and to really make a name for himself and nail down a consistent place in the Dolphin side. But you're right, there's a couple of things in there that are, particularly in this format, they're not quite there. So your Sarvels, good player, but not quite where you would want him in terms of strike rate. Jason Smith, he's better suited at the longer formats. But it's a nicely balanced side without being. There aren't no massive, star quality players, but it's a nicely balanced squad, which is what I like.
Yeah, I think they will be if they're gonna go far, I think it's gonna be down to their bowling helping them through, and keeping those scores low. And I'd like to see Pernell and Subrian do well in this format. I think he's really good, especially in T20s. The Dufferbet Warriors, Rudy second, Sinatemba Tashile, Diego Rosia, Vian Liba, Ziad Abrahams, Mtiwaka Nabe, Akona Mnyaka, Tian van Vieren, Bear Swanepoel, Lesiba Ngwepe, Gaudise Molefe, Tepon Dwandwe, Matthew Bretzka, Glenton Steedman, and Jordan Harman. We're young. This team we're young. We've got some veteran help, but we're just trying to be able to always punch above our weight. I'd like a Warriors team with some, I don't know, because I look at these names and I'm like, they've done it before, but it feels like, and Robbie's probably going to kill me if I say this, feels Cinderella-ish. Things have to go their way for them to win. They obviously are a miserly team with guys who necessarily aren't leaders in their respective departments, but together they are better than themselves individually. So they're not going to be reliant on one person doing a lot of things like the other teams, but they're going to have to all pitch in somewhere. But that's how the Warriors have been. And obviously without John Smarts, I'm not sure how they'll do, but I like Vian Liba as a batter. Sinatemba Tashile, this has to be some sort of a resurrection season for him. Matthew Bretzka has to prove some of that form that we saw and the potential that we saw earlier on. Lesiba Ngwepe has to continue to put down the runs and do the naysayers. It's the next step of this team that surprised everybody else, Tim. I'm just not sure if they'll be well coached, yes, but can they do it again for another season?
I'm totally in agreement with you. They're missing something here. I can't really put my finger on it because they brought in Ziad Abrahams for Darren Patterson. I think that's a good signing. I think Ziad Abrahams, more often than not, particularly in the death overs, is a good buy. I think Bear Swanepoel is actually a good acquisition to take over from John. I like him. I saw him in the Northern Cape, and I thought he had something about him, and he does hit the ball a long way. Useful bowler, decent numbers. Jordan Herman, I think Jordan Herman is a wonderful player. It'll be interesting to see how Jordan Herman and Matthew Buritsky get on. If they are the ones there to open, I'm just looking here at open. I don't know. They'll probably open with Vian. It's a decent side, but it's missing something. As you said, it relies an awful lot on the guys that we know that did well. Vian Lubbers did well last year. Nkuapi did well last year. It relies on Jordan Herman proving his talent, proving that he's here to stay in this format, and the experience of somebody like Rudy Second as well. You hope he has a full season, but I think he's going to miss out. I think he's going to miss out on the important parts of the season, unless, as you say, everything clicks, and everything's got to click.
Yeah, and then the final set of teams, apologies, not the SA20, it's the CSA T20, sorry. Last two. Oh, wait, no, we've got one more to go to. My team, actually. I nearly left my team out. The DP World Lions.
Scandalous.
Guys, we know these guys are going to do quite well. So Ryan Rickleton, Cameron Delport, Dominic Hendricks, Mitch van Buren, Sisanda Magala, Vian Mulder, Evan Jones, Malusi Siboto, Cody Yusuf, Luto Sipamla, Tetelo Mapaka, who's Gwena's older brother, Connor Esterhazen, Cladi Bukako, Liam Elder, and Ayavuya Mioli. I think this is well balanced. I think they've given us a well balanced team. Sisanda's an X Factor player. Vian Mulder's had a great year already. Mitch van Buren's a strong batter. Dom can be used well in parts as a batter. He's not a T20 type, but the Cameron Delport signing for me is that one. It's that signing that takes you over. It's a signing that knows that Reza Hendricks is going to go to be at the World Cup. I need someone to come in and hit from ball one. Ryan Rickleton's a good player in this format, so I'm really happy about that. Tetela Mapaka is a left-arm spinner coming out of the Lions Colts team. So that's going to be quite interesting for us to see how he's going to do. And then, yes, I for me, this team rests in the middle order, in the all-rounders. Magala, Vian Mulder, Evan Jones. If those guys can do both consistently, they can beat any team in this format. And so, I look at this team, Tim, and I'm like, can we just write down? Can we put it in pen that they are the champions?
I'd have to say that a lot of what you said is true. I hate to say it, but a lot of what you said is true. That batting lineup is something that really does scare me. The Cameron Delport, he did well, but he didn't do as well as I would have expected him to do when he was playing Division 2 cricket last year. I am hoping, from a neutral point of view, the fact that he's playing Division 1, the fact that he's now got a bigger platform to prove that he is the real deal. I mean, his numbers are outstanding. His strike rate is, around the 140 mark. So that's going to be important. I read about this earlier today about players that I think are going to do well in this tournament, and I think Vian. Now, automatically, you think Vian, you think he doesn't do T20 cricket. He doesn't fit with him. Doesn't fit with his makeup. I think that sometimes all you need is a good bit of a run of form. That run of form for Leicestershire has put him in a good space. He's got good form. He's doing well with the bat, not just with the ball. He's actually doing better with the bat, which is better for you guys. I think that's a huge plus for you. Yes. The fact that you've got Vian Mulder and Evan Jones. Evan Jones is a fantastic signing from Northern Cape. And then you think, well, where's the spin? You think, well, Bjorn Verteen's missing. Ooh, that's a big hole to fill. Liam Elder. Wait, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Liam Elder, I tell you what, is going to cause problems in this tournament. I am a huge fan of him. I'm so impressed with him in the Division 2 competition. I think he's going to slip up here as if nothing had changed. I think he's going to be a real fight. It's going to cause a lot of people problems. So, as good as Fortuyn is, he averages 12 on this ground in T20 cricket, interestingly. I think Liam Elder is a very good replacement.
Yes, I think, yeah, look, the batting's not as good as the Titans, but those all-rounders give you that late. So the Lions could be like 40 for 3, but end up 160 with the work that Vian, Evan Ross, and Sasanda can actually do, and Malusi as well. So it could be like a dumpster fire, but you kind of like, okay, the best batters are at the bottom. So that's going to be quite interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see if they'll be able to actually keep themselves in the game with the bat, because we know they can do that with the ball. Final two teams, the Dragons and the Knights. Northwest Dragon, Haino Kuhn, Algid Hawkins, Lesejo Senokwane, Delano Portgita, Shaylin Pillay, Senran Mutusami, Ronaldo Meyer, Luandisa Zuma, Duan Jansen, Grant Mokwena, Caleb Seleka, Cohen Mangru, Wesley Marshall, Kaya Kotani, and Hardis Kutsa. Again, I didn't do this on purpose, but these two teams are probably the two teams I know will probably finish at the bottom of the log. But I know the Northwest Dragons, when I said this last year, they went on to prove me wrong and got to the semifinals. Similar to the Warriors, it's we're better together than hoping for one person to try and get us through. But I look at their bowling and their spin bowling, and I'm like, probably the best spin bowling in the competition with Seleka and Mutusami. I don't know how they let Cohen Mangru go in the Dolphins, but that's an upgrade for the Dragons. The batting again will be a question. Haino Kuhn needs to try to figure out a way to get himself back into that form. But it's outside of Kuhn and Marshall and Wesley Marshall, and to a certain extent Duan Jansen, who we're still waiting to see. I think Delano Porchita is better than Duan Jansen, and we'll see it all again. But I don't see where else you could go with this team.
Yeah, look, it's again, I think it was the same last year. It's all rounder heavy without having a marquee or set player who is outstanding in either fashion. So you don't have a Cameron Delport who you know is going to come off, more often than not. It relies too much on the Porthitas, Muthusami and Marshall. Haino Kuhn, I don't know if Haino Kuhn is going to find his form again. I don't know. I hope he does. But I just think that they're hanging on to him a season too long. I think they needed to go and look and trust one of the Colts players, one of the Colts youngsters to come through and do the business. Like we saw that guy from the Easterns, what was his name? Mark Peterson. He made 50 in there. For me, he would have been ideal. He would have been absolutely ideal for this sort of competition, for this sort of team as well. Not a team of big egos, a team of that do play for one another, that do play as a team, but they're just missing some star quality there, some really good quality. That being said, I'm really looking forward to seeing Caleb Seleka, like you say. I think he's going to have another fantastic tournament. Again, I think spin's going to be have a huge say in this tournament. But yeah, I think batting, they're missing something. Bowling, they're actually all right. I think their bowling is all right. I think they'll do all right, but their batting's missing something. They're going to need Duan Jansen to come off,
Just come off somehow. He was worth 3 million rand.
Exactly. He's gonna have to come off and show us why he was bought. I 100% think he's got it, but he's got to prove it. He's got to say, I've got it. That's what's going to happen now.
Yeah, look, a lot of people in this tournament are going to be trying to prove their price tags. The Knights, oh my word, I don't know where to start with this team, but anyway, the Knights team for this tournament, Gian Kluter, Jacques Snyman, Joshua Cobb, Aubrey Swanepoel, Patrick Kruger, Piet van Bouillon, Gerald Coetzee, Miguel Pretorius, Alfred Motwa, Mbulelo Budaza, Mbongi Mhlanga, Nilan van Heerden, Nathan Roux, Rapeleng Motlwaring, Renard van Tonder.
It's like we've gone back into 2021. I could say exactly what I said in 2021, and it would be what my opinions are for this team. My opinions for this team have not changed an iota.
But unless
yeah, I said except this was a huge run, and it took me a while to actually work it out. So they lost Riley, which is astronomically catastrophic to the side, potentially. They lost Riley to the World Cup. They had to get somebody in. And they got an Englishman. They got a guy from England to come in. Joshua Cobb, number 3 there, just below Snyman. Now this boy has got the numbers. He's got nearly 4,000 runs, strike rate of touching 140. I think it's actually over 140. He's got lots of experience, nearly 200 games in T20 cricket. He's got 76 wickets, bowling his off spin as well, so it's useful in terms of that. He could be the key to this team. And I've given up on clitters and slammers of this world. Now, the Knights can't afford to do that. They can't afford to do that. But I've given up on them. I think
up on Fantona, because this team works if their young core of Coetzee, Miguel Pretorius, and Renard van Tonder actually, and obviously Jacques Snyman, actually step up. If they don't, they go back to the same old, what are we trying to do in Bloemfontein situation. And Gerald Coetzee, lots of money at the SA20. Miguel Pretorius, lots of money at the SA20. Plays around the world in the CPL, but at home has been a shell of himself. And Renard van Tonder, we know he hasn't been a T20 player. He kind of showed us a little bit last year. Hopefully he can come and do it. But to me, I sit here going, oh, Lord, without Riley, this team is nowhere.
It's a shadow. It's a shadow of what it was. And what it was not a team that they could make the top 4. Could not a team that could make the semis. So it's a lot of pressure. Again, it's a repeat. Jacques Snyman, end of last season, he went back to Ireland, where he plays his cricket in the winter, had another fantastic season, same as last season, dominated over there. Won all sorts of competitions, won man of the match tournaments, won season of player of the year, all that stuff. Again, he's technically in form. But we saw last year, it did not translate in any way, shape or form for the Knights, but it has to. He's now 29 years old. It's now time to say, this is why I played for South Africa. I played for South Africa because I can play this kind of cricket. He needs to prove it now. The pressure is there. The pressure is on. But he's got to prove it. But as I say, I'll just keep repeating. The huge pressure on 2, 3, 4 players here. Massive. Massive. I don't see... Province have got youngsters coming through. Warriors have got youngsters coming through. I don't see the youngsters coming through here. I don't see an academy guy, a Colts player coming through the system and doing well. That's a problem if I'm a Knights supporter. I don't want to be too doom and gloom, but that is a problem if you're not getting guys coming through.
and that's my only issue with that team. I think um it it kind of gives me an indication that organizationally, I don't know if they're okay, but that's neither here or there. Your top four teams, Tim.
In no particular order,
Mm-hmm.
Titans, Lions, Dolphins, Province.
Dolphins, Province. I'll give you
Yeah,
Titans, Lions.
yeah.
Actually, let me go back and look. I'll give you Titans and Lions. I'm just looking. Rocks for me. I'm a sucker for good spinners. I'll give you Paul Rocks. I think the Paul Rocks are gonna be there, and I'll give you the Dolphins. I think for me, those are the ones. Northwest, guys. Northwest and the Warriors for me are, yes, you can surprise guys. I don't know if you can win a tournament surprising people. So
Yeah.
yeah, so for me that's what it is. The one player you think this tournament is important for?
One player that's important for. Let me think. Somebody who I haven't mentioned already. Just say up the squads for me.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we've got the three, the Dolphins. To me, it's Spinella Macania. I think he is looking to knock on the door.
Okay. Okay. For me, it's Portuguesa. Delano Portuguesa. For me.
Yeah.
Portuguesa, and I'm thinking higher honours. I'm thinking after this World Cup, which we will discuss the World Cup later in the week. I'm thinking that. I'm thinking long term for him. I'm thinking, particularly if the Proteas don't do well, particularly if they fail, they need to have a rethink around that in terms of the personnel that they pick. He is the sort of guy that you could pick and give a proper run. Hard-hitting batsman. I think his bowling is coming on, actually. So you a lot of these guys, like your Muthosami,
Yeah.
fantastic bowler, isn't doing it enough, the batting, in this particular format. I love him to bits, but if he's honest, he's not. Portuguesa is doing both, the bat and the ball, and he's doing the business in both. He definitely deserves. And this is important for him. He needs to back it up. He needs to say, I'm not just a talent. I actually want to play for South Africa.
Because he also wasn't selected for SA20, so that's another wrinkle in time there. Yeah, well, obviously you got the guys at the Knights, the Fantondos, the Joe Casillas, the Miguels, who are picked on potential, but we need to see that potential come through, because if they do, that Knights team is going to be very deliciously tough to face. But they have to prove their selection, and that's what I like about this one. It's a bit of a precursor. It's a bit of a, if somebody does well, people are gonna be like, why isn't he in SA20? Or that's why he was selected for SA20, and so that's going to be quite important. Outside of that, thank you very much, Tim. I think for all those listening, our preview for the World Cup will come out later on this week. We're still watching Zimbabwe win games, and all these minnows do incredible things, and then we'll worry about the Proteas later. But they did beat New Zealand earlier today. Surprisingly, Tabré Shamsi back in form. Tabré Shamsi takes wickets everywhere he goes. Yes, that's what he does. I'm so excited. I'm really happy because he took like 3 wickets, and New Zealand's no joke. So for me, that step in the right direction. And all of those who are wondering about Timber, he did not play today. So you don't have to write in the comments. You don't have to phone me. Okay, please don't phone me. You don't have to. You can attack me on Twitter, but don't phone me and about this. But he didn't play. Reza scored runs. Riley scored runs. So yeah, okay. It was 97. So like, yeah. But we've got more. We've got more games to come, and yeah, we'll talk about the World Cup. Outside of that, Tim, thank you very much. Yeah, goodbye, and yeah, we'll see you on the other side. And Lesale, Kakakiso.